Welcome to the Schofield Truth. I'm Susan Schofield, here with my daughter Janny, my husband Corey Cabana, and we're here today to dispel all these rumors that have been going on over the internet about our family. And this took place back in 2009 when my daughter was first diagnosed with schizophrenia. We got a lot of backlash for the medication that she was on. Now, she was taking medication that was prescribed by real doctors at UCLA and later at Kaiser. So these medications are very serious and she needed them. But we got a lot of backlash from that. And currently I have an open case and a closed case regarding this medication. The closed case is my daughter Janny. We are able to talk about her because she's free and she's almost 20.
Tomorrow, actually.
Tomorrow, yes. And so in our last episode, Janny took us through her experiences in withdrawals because the social workers practiced medicine without a license and decided she didn't need medication and took her off cold turkey.
Sí, malas experiencias.
All right. Yes. And Janny's going to be doing a little bit of Spanish throughout the episode. So give it a little bit more entertainment. So in this podcast, though, we are going to take you through May 2019 out to December 2019 at Maryvale, when she was nearly arrested for assaulting another social worker. But before we get to that, we're going to have some fun with Janny's Jeopardy. So, Janny, what is the first answer?
Okay, and I'm going to do this one in English.
Okay.
It's just easier. But DCFS and CLC are unconcerned with this type of injury on a child.
What is self-inflicted?
That's correct.
That's right. Self-inflicted injuries, that has come up quite a bit in my case with Janny. Again, I can't talk about my open case right now, which is actually incredibly similar to my closed case with my daughter. So we'll just go on from that. Now, self-inflicted injuries. Why don't you tell us, Janny, about some of your self-inflicted injuries that occurred before Maryvale and inside Maryvale?
Well, there's a lot of them. So I guess the one that comes to mind the most is, I believe, August 2nd, where I was basically trying to cut myself with a broken clock.
How did the clock break?
I broke it.
Yeah.
I literally tore it off the wall, took it in my room, and broke it.
Yeah. Something that is also of interest is Janny was completely off all medication at this point, and Maryvale thought she just didn't need it. She was just acting out every minute of the day.
Right. This was at the time, the judge in the case was more concerned with behavioral modification than he was medication.
Yeah.
And because of his belief, I guess DCFS was pressuring Maryvale's medical staff to keep Janny unmedicated. And then even after they went as far as having Janny re-diagnosed, reconfirmed her schizophrenia diagnosis, they still would not, give her any medication, even the medication that the judge had already authorized.
Yes, and this was a lot later than when she was first taken. In fact, it was almost like an experiment with her because they kept her off all medication, took her off cold turkey, everything when she was taken from me.
Yep, and I went through severe medical withdrawals.
And then they still kept her off medication against doctor's orders from the UCLA ER, LAC, USC ER. Each one of them gave a prescription again to refill the regular medication. And they didn't do it. The judge did not do it. Social workers did not do it. It was only, in fact, like about 2 months later that they actually said, okay, it was a month and a half later they said,
The first authorization for medication was April 17th.
Mm-hmm.
So it took them that long to actually get around to actually saying, maybe she does need medication. So the judge did authorize that, but nothing else. And it was never prescribed. It was medication for Thorazine, and it's spelled wrong.
And remember, her medications were lithium and clozaril, very serious medications. You can't get these medications without very serious doctors who are actually in a registry to
Right.
give clozapine.
Let's go into that a little bit. In order to give a prescription for clozapine, a doctor must be on a list that is nationwide. And then when you go to the pharmacy, you must go to the correct pharmacy that is on that list that is authorized to dispense this medication. This isn't a medication. It's not a controlled substance medication like you would for a narcotic or something like that, but it is a controlled medication that it's not easy to get, and it's not easy to write a prescription for it. So it's very important to understand that this isn't just over-the-counter stuff that you can get. Now, second of all, the medication is very, very strong. It is the strongest antipsychotic medication that was out there, and it still is. It's an old medication too. Now, it has pluses and minuses. What it does is it turns the volume down on the noise.
Well, we can talk to Janny. Why don't you take those, because we don't take clozapine or clozapine.
Well,
she does.
Yes. So basically withdrawing from clozaril, I hear voices. So basically it just turns the volume down on the voices. It doesn't really do much for the impulses, but that's what the lithium does.
Right. And so there's the pluses and minuses, but they're serious medication, and it is not something that a doctor would willingly misdiagnose, because the medication, you would immediately see if the medication was a good or a bad thing for this patient.
Also, there are blood draws.
Yes.
And again, I wasn't. The blood draws, we still have them.
Okay.
But,
and the pharmacies actually require those blood draws before they'll give the medication. If they don't see the blood draws, and if the blood work is not in the prescribed range, then they won't give the medication. So
exactly.
See,
all right.
This is a controlled thing. It's very important. And, I just want people to recognize that this is not something that, has been easily received or easily given or anything like that. It's serious.
Yes, it's very serious. It's not a joke like a lot of people make it out to be.
Yeah.
What's our next one?
Yeah.
Yeah. When DCFS social workers found no evidence to back up their allegations against my mom, the judge used this word to justify keeping me in state custody.
What is insight?
Yep.
The judge decided that before he's going to allow the case to be closed, Susan had to require insight as to why DCFS was brought into her life. Now, there is no legal definition. In fact, what insight is going to satisfy him? It just blows my mind.
Well,
he can't hang his legal hat on insight, because insight is speculative. It's like my insight is different from your insight is different from anyone else's insight.
Here's something kind of funny too. Remember, he made me go through all these doctors and psychiatrists.
The 730s.
730 forensic evaluations to see if, I'm really off the deep end here. And they came back going, what the hell is he talking about with this insight? And he said, one of them said, well, you do have PTSD from, going through this. I go, well, yeah. But they all recommended Janny come home. But he just didn't like that.
No.
He just didn't. So,
Actually, there was a word if.
Right.
There was a word if at the end of a 730 that the judge said if. If mother continues to take medication and go to counseling, then she should receive Janny back. Now,
and
there's
the closed case. No. And there is the open case that should have been closed when this forensic psychiatrist said that my open case should be closed and all children returned.
Right.
That was back in December of 2019.
And see, the funniest part about that is that there's a second addendum. There's an individual page that the doctors included because they kind of thought that the judge was going to misinterpret the report. And so they included a one-page summarize it to say that it says that just in case you didn't understand what we were talking about, we mean return the children. And the judge didn't even look at that page. He looked at the last page, last paragraph, and the word if.
Remember, they're in deep at this point because they've already went against all doctors' orders with their belief that she did not need medication. So they took the doctor said, give her medication, the same medication, and they just didn't want to do it because then the case would have been completely done.
And the judge never signed a order for the medication, that the lithium or the clozaril. All he signed order for was the Thorazine, again, which was not correctly spelled.
All right, Gianni, you want to say something?
Yes. I'm going to say this in Spanish because I want people to hear. Well, cuando me dejaron en un homeless shelter. And that's where I actually got, well, that's where I almost died.
And we go into detail in our second episode on all of those withdrawals that she went through. So, Gianni, let's get into the third answer here.
Right? Vámonos. Social workers use this phrase to describe children who say they're going to kill themselves.
What is attention seeking?
Yes.
Yep.
I would like to tell you about a little incident. Mm-hmm. On April 12th, we were visiting Bodie in the UCLA psych ward because he was placed there for evaluation and remedicated 25 days into the case. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're there and Janny's there and the social worker brought her. And then Janny's upset because, unmedicated Janny had to be the center of attention. And at that moment, we were centering on Bodie. And so Janny got upset and she asked the social worker for a piece of paper. She took a piece of paper and a pen and she wrote, she talks about the April 12th club.
Well, why don't you explain this?
Let me finish. Let me finish. Okay. So she did all of this. She wrote out that the April 12th club that she would just like to kill herself. And the social worker said, oh, that's just attention seeking. So here you have a child that is diagnosed with a mental illness who is not of sound mind or body in a psych ward, and she's making a declaration to kill herself. Now, here's the thing. At that time, Janny hated to write. She hated to physically write the letters on paper. She wanted the letters to look like they did when they were printed, and that, of course, can't happen. So she didn't like writing. So for the act of her to physically write something down like that was a movement that was beyond her normal. Okay. That was not impulse control. That was impulse that she reacted on because she had to. Okay.
Also, she had bruises up and down her arms and her legs that were, self-inflicted. So everything was fine because they were, quote unquote, self-inflicted. So the judge didn't care. No one cared because they were self-inflicted. So Janny, go ahead.
Now we asked the nurse on the psych ward, and they didn't want to talk to us. And then we said, get a doctor. They refused. So we went down to the ER and talked to the doctors down there, and they said, fine, bring the body down here where we, and it's like, we can't because the social worker basically controls her. And they're like, we can't do anything without Janny.
And the social worker doesn't believe in medication.
So here we are in a psych ward with a suicide note, and no one cares.
And we'll show the suicide note. Just, we kept it. Okay, Janny, why don't you read answer number 4?
These minimum wage babysitters monitor and drive foster kids from one location to another.
What is a human services aide? Or HSA, as they're called.
Yeah, they're the low-paid minimum wage employees that DCFS hires to do the grunt things that grunts have to do. They drive, they babysit, they make they're supposed to make sure that nothing happens to them.
But sometimes they do have police or background checks. Sometimes they do have background checks.
Every once in a while, they'll run a background check on someone.
So that's all great. Now, Janny, what happened on May 14th, 2019?
Well, I was coming back from a visit with my brother and at the hospital. And then when I got in the car, there was a ton of traffic. And I was trying to get back to Maryvale for art class because they rarely had activities at Maryville. But they had art class that day, and I was trying to get back. And because there was a ton of traffic, I attacked the social worker while she was driving.
Now, these are behaviors Jani used to do when she was 5 and 6 years old. There was a reason she was put in the psych hospitals, because although
a danger to herself and others. And I would say that a 6-year-old climbing over the back seat and grabbing the steering wheel or grabbing the gear shift to try to change gears, that might fall under those danger to self and others.
Yes, and this hadn't happened in years to me. I mean, she was fine in the car. I forgot it even happened. And then, but I guess it was back again, but now she's almost 17.
And it's not the first time, was it?
No.
So go ahead. What happened with that lady?
Well, she charged me with assault.
Yeah, she actually, because we read the report through, and it was, it was for me, it was a PTSD thing, because I'm reading it, looking at what she wrote, and everybody else that read it, all these other people are like, oh, this woman is exaggerating and everything. And I'm going, no, that's right on. And it's like, I'm reading and it goes, and then we stopped at a red light, and I'm like, oh my God, a red light. Oh my God, because I knew whenever you stop, that's when Jani would go way out there. And of course,
there was actually one time, I think that this was in June, where the hop skip drive driver that would take me to school was late that day. And I was trying to get to school on time, but she was late. And the drive from Rosemead to Valencia is an hour away. So when she stopped, this is what happened first. She told me, just take a nap. And then we'll be there before you know it. And I was like,
I didn't know this.
And I was like, how dare you say that? And when she got to a red light, I jumped out the car. Or not jumped, but I got out of the car. And what happened was, and I started, so I started acting like a 5-year-old and started hiding in bushes so she wouldn't see me. And I did that for about a mile down the road. And then she finally, not her, but the staff at Maryville finally came out and found me. And that was pretty much it.
But, during all this time, I'm hearing Jani's doing great.
Yes, the judge actually used the word thriving.
Yeah.
Thriving. He said the children were thriving outside of mom's care. That's what they called thriving. Jani's grades had gone from a 3.4 down to a 2 point. She was no longer in her advanced placement, her animal pathways classes. Even though that was a court order,
yes, also,
that they violated.
Oh, also, I was helping out at a horse ranch before I was taken too.
Yes.
Right, and they stopped doing that. She volunteered every weekend, one day a week, to clean up. We went down and we mucked stables and we
fed the horses.
We fed the horses. It was a horse rescue ranch where these weren't horses that were to be ridden by anyone. They were horses just to be cared for because they're old and they're at the end of their life basically. Yeah. And this is, we were just helping care for them. And so we got to pet them and brush them down, and, we mucked out the stables and we, gave them the hay, and then Jani would mix the food, the different
what
feed.
else did you do there, Jani?
Well, for the older horses, the ones that were usually in their 30s, they couldn't have hay because they were too old. So what I did for them was I mixed, it's like oats or whatever.
Yeah, grain.
There
was different grain. There was oats and barley.
And this time she wanted to be a veterinarian. So it's like we were just, keeping her busy, because remember, I had to do this since she was born. Keep her busy every minute. So we did all these kinds of things, and they took her out of it. They just
stopped.
Yeah, her life was stolen. And again, I like to emphasize, if I'm the problem here, why am I doing what I've always been doing, and she's locked up, taken away? Her whole life was stolen.
Now, she did maintain her high school.
Yes, I was going to say that too. Thank you for bringing that up, because we have a wonderful education advocate out here, in Santa Clarita, and
I think we can say her name. What do you think?
Yeah, Hadassah Foster, and she's amazing. She works out here with all the special needs kids. She's the one that basically forced them to get Janny, to allow Janny to be able to say, I want to stay at my home school. Otherwise, they were pushing so hard to keep her in Maryvale and Alhambra, so under their control. And thank God for Hadassah.
Well, here's the thing.
She really
the thing
made the
is
difference.
that when Hadassah was able to keep Janny going to Valencia, that kept the people that knew Janny before she was taken, and then after that she was taken, they knew her while she was medicated, and they know her then as unmedicated. And the difference, they had daily problems with Janny while she was unmedicated.
Problems they had never seen before, because they were all gone by the time she even got to high school.
Where the principal's telling us at an IEP where Janny is laying on the concrete,
Right.
and it's 110 degrees outside.
He had to pick her
So
up.
the concrete is 125, 130 degrees, and she's wearing a t-shirt and shorts.
Yeah, he had to pick her up, and he didn't want to even do that, but he's like, I can't, she's going to burn there. So it was really
This is
bad.
major behavior that she did not, well, she hadn't experienced that major behavior since she was 6 years old.
Yeah.
Literally. So all of these people, so it is good to see how she was before and how she was under their care, and the judge called it thriving, and that's
Yeah.
wonderful. But the issue here is that Hadassah was able to keep us in that venue, to
Yes.
keep Janny in the sight of the people that knew her and
Yeah.
were like, this isn't right. And like we said, she was taken away from her studies. She had an animal pathways course,
Right.
which was an advanced placement course. It was not something that you could, just get to. She had to qualify for it. And here's the thing: she was in special needs at the time, and she was getting an A in an advanced placement course.
Because with mental illnesses in general, it's like the brain is like brilliant in parts and then
Deficient in
others. And that's the thing, you have to work with that. So, we were doing that. We had everything. We had all the services, but it didn't matter. And let me tell you something funny. Janny, do you remember when I got to visit with you and Hadassah called on the phone, and I took a chance because the social worker was right there.
Yeah, so
and I'm like,
yes, I remember. It was at TGI Friday.
yeah, I had the phone, and I'm not supposed to even have a phone, anything in the visit, because, I could use it. So anyway, Hadassah's on the line. I go, Janny, it's your education advocate here. And so Janny takes the phone, and the social worker's like reaching over going, you can't bring that. You can't do that. And Janny is like running around going, yeah, I need my education. So Hadassah was able to get in and really work it.
Well, Hadassah basically just presented it, and DCFS lawyers recognized that there are federal statutes that they are obligated to follow because, laws. Federal laws that they're required to follow, and the FAPE.
Yeah, what is it, Janny? FAPE is fair and appropriate
education something.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
they violated everything. The social workers didn't even violate the medications. They violated
she didn't
everything.
Go to school. She didn't go to school for almost
5
a
weeks.
month.
Yeah.
5 weeks. She was out of school completely. And when the social workers first came to me, and I asked them, I go, well, is she going to be going to school? What's going to happen? And the social worker said, oh, she's going to go to school on Monday. And I'm like, see, again, they thought my kids were just fine. They're going to take them. Everything's going to be great. Get them away from mom. And they found out that, they couldn't get them anywhere.
Yeah, day 5.
Anywhere.
From day 5 on, they knew that not only were their hands full, but their cup was overflowing and flowing all over the floor. And that's not a baby Ruth.
So anyway, so really quick, I want to get, before we end the show, take us through the forensic evaluator that happened in July. Janny, do you remember?
Not a lot of it, no.
Okay, because what happened was we were all supposed to go for forensic evaluations, a 7:30 doctor who, kind of could judge who's got what here.
A 7:30 evaluation
Yes.
is the court's version of "Are you crazy?" and "Can we get it written down?"
So anyway, I went in first and I started talking, and then I was in there for like a half an hour, and then she took Janny in next, and we were listening to Janny through the door because there's a group of us that were being evaluated that were listening, and Janny's just talking, here, there, everywhere. And so the evaluator comes back out, takes the other people in, they go out, and then she says, I need to talk to you. And I go back in, and she goes, what are you going to do? She's gone. She's lost it. She can't stay on a thought. And I go, I don't know. This is what they're telling me. And she was running around in circles going, oh my God, I can't believe this. Because she's off medication. Clearly the 7:30 evaluator's like, oh, she has what she has. And then she writes the report for the judge. And the judge just said it didn't address what he wanted it to address.
Right. He said he didn't get the answers he needed.
So he said, we're going to give this report a little less weight than normally it would have.
I am going to give this less weight than I normally would.
Right. And then on top of it, they give that same report to her psychiatrist at Maryvale, who says, I disagree with it. I disagree with it.
Yep.
And that was it. So she goes on for another how many months unmedicated?
Several. Like about 4, yeah. And his name was Dr. Elmachat.
Yes, it was. It was Dr. Elmachat. And we filed many complaints against him, but haven't heard much on that.
Well, we've got one with the medical board.
With the medical board. Okay, let's talk about that real quick before we end the show. Janny filed against Dr. Elmachat. The medical board has been doing their quote-unquote investigation for over a year now.
Yeah.
And we gave him, how many incident reports did they have after he kept saying, Janny's thriving, Janny's doing great? How many incident reports do we have?
There were 38 total incident reports. Now, what's funny about that is I guarantee you that they just got tired of writing. So there were incidents that occurred that never made it to the paper.
Janny, how many incidents did you have a day, would you estimate?
5
a day. And that's what it was when she was a child. It wasn't just like quote unquote meltdown that, happens a day even. It was like 5-10 times a day. You can't go anywhere. And this is also the case with another case that I can't talk about. And it happens upwards of, like 10 times a day, and you just can't live. And there's a reason they have psychiatric facilities. There's a reason they have medications. They work.
Yeah.
They work to the point where you can't even tell that they even have the illness. But anyway, we're going to wrap this episode up. Thank you for joining us on the Schofield Truth. We're going to have more in our next program. And you can contact us at theschofieldtruth.com. Thank you.
Thank you.